We are diving deep today into one of the most intense geopolitical debates in the world, the status of Taiwan.
Right.
You hear the claims constantly, and they're often delivered with, great volume and intensity, that Taiwan is an inseparable part of a certain mainland power.
That history dictates it. That's all settled.
Exactly. It's the kind of geopolitical heat that can make you feel just, overwhelmed by the rhetoric alone.
But that's the thing. The moment you strip away the political rhetoric, all the shouting, all the slogans, and you actually look at the foundation of international law, the picture changes. I mean, it changes entirely.
And that's our mission today, isn't it? To move past those assertions and really examine the foundational legal text.
Yes. Our sources point to one document in particular.
The 1951 San Francisco Peace Treaty, a document that our sources actually describe as Taiwan's strongest spiritual shield.
That's the one. We're moving beyond opinion and into formal signed legal text. Just for context, the SFPT was signed September 8th, 1951. It was implemented in April of 52.
And this isn't some obscure paper. This is a formally signed international law treaty. It officially ended the war in the Pacific.
It did. And our goal here is simple: to extract the facts from this treaty that define the island's legal standing today, over 70 years later.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We need to know what the treaty actually required the defeated nation Japan to do regarding the territories it controlled.
Specifically Taiwan and the Penghu Islands.
Right.
Well, the first, and this is the non-negotiable legal fact, is that Japan formally abandoned all rights, titles, and claims to Taiwan and Penghu.
Abandoned.
Abandoned. That is the cornerstone. The treaty required Japan to relinquish its colonial holdings, and it was final, irreversible. This isn't really open to interpretation.
It's a hard legal fact.
It is. It's confirmed by dozens of signatory nations. And look, the original document is a formal record. It's housed with the U.S. federal government, and it's readily available on the UN treaty website for anyone to see.
So step one is crystal clear. Japan is definitively out of the picture. That fact is settled in international law. This document confirms the end of Japanese sovereignty over Taiwan.
That's right. Japan relinquished its ownership. And this is a point where a lot of political arguments just stop, because the narrative of abandonment serves their purpose.
But the legal reality gets much more complicated right after that point.
Immediately after.
Okay, so that brings us to the central ambiguity, the real core of this entire deep dive. If Japan abandoned the territory, they legally moved out, who did this formal international treaty designate as the recipient?
Who was supposed to take over sovereignty?
Yeah.
This is the critical omission. And it is, I would argue, the most important fact of the entire treaty when it comes to Taiwan's status. The document, right after stating Japan's abandonment, absolutely did not specify or designate a legal recipient for Taiwan and Penghu.
But wait, surely, after a major world war, with the geopolitical stakes so high, the Allied powers didn't just forget to name a recipient. How could 50 nations just kick that can down the road?
And that's where the historical context of 1951 is just, it's absolutely vital. This was a deliberate omission. It was not an oversight.
Okay.
You have to remember, 1951 was the height of the early Cold War. The victorious allies, we're talking mainly the United States and the UK, they could not agree on which Chinese government to formally recognize and hand the territory to.
Right. Because you had the newly established People's Republic of China on the mainland, and you had the Republic of China government, which had retreated to Taiwan after 1949.
Precisely. So think about it. If the SFPT had designated the PRC, it would have been a massive Cold War victory for communism. It would have alienated Japan and other key allies instantly.
Okay.
But if they designated the ROC, it would have been seen as an explicit act of war against the PRC, which many nations were just not willing to do.
So to hold the coalition together, they had to find a third way.
The only viable legal path? Formal abandonment without designation. The legal status was just left hanging.
That distinction, abandonment without designation, that changes everything.
It really does.
It stops any single party from claiming automatic inherent ownership just based on, say, historical proximity or post-war military occupation.
It changes the entire legal landscape. Because no succeeding government was legally named in the treaty, international law views Taiwan's sovereignty status as officially undetermined.
Undetermined.
Japan simply moved out, and the successor was not defined by this foundational legal document. And this fact is so crucial because it provides the rational international legal grounds to refute the political claim that Taiwan automatically belongs to the PRC.
So that claim that it's settled history just doesn't hold up under the light of this key omission in the SFPT.
Not at all.
So the SFPT is the primary document that ended the war, and it's silent on the recipient. The status has to remain legally undetermined until what a new agreement is reached, or until the people of Taiwan determine their own future.
Exactly. It establishes a definitive legal break with the past without establishing a new sovereign owner. This legally enforced ambiguity gives Taiwan the broadest possible latitude for self-determination.
So any political entity asserting automatic ownership has to somehow get around this central, legally signed omission.
Yes, and the burden of proof is on them to show a designated legal recipient in the treaty. And the SFPT just doesn't provide one.
Okay, now this brings us to a really fascinating, if self-destructive legal counter-strategy that opponents often use.
Right.
They try to defeat the SFPT entirely, dismissing it as like invalid historical waste paper or something along those lines. Our sources call this their biggest failure.
It is the ultimate logical contradiction. The source material, I think, very cleverly calls it the logic boomerang.
The logic boomerang, I like that.
It's an argument designed to destroy Taiwan's undetermined status that just ends up destroying the very point they are trying to make. It's a completely self-inflicted legal wound.
Okay, let's slow down here because this is a critical legal paradox. I think you, the learner, need to fully grasp this. Let's walk through the steps of this logic boomerang.
Sure. So we start with their premise. Step 1. They hypothesize that the 1951 San Francisco Peace Treaty is void. It's illegal, invalid in the eyes of international law.
Got it. So they're trying to just make the SFPT disappear.
Exactly. But if the whole treaty is void, then step 2 must follow logically.
Which is?
Japan's Key Act, the formal abandonment of Taiwan and Penghu, which is legally mandated by that treaty, must also be invalid.
Oh, you can't declare the receipt for a transaction invalid, but still claim the consequences of that transaction are final.
You can't. So if the abandonment is invalid, Japan's claim to Taiwan would technically still be active since the legal transfer never actually completed.
Right.
So if Japan never legally abandoned the territory, step 3 must be that the status of Taiwan legally reverts to the last effective international treaty concerning its status from before the invalid SFPT.
And what was that predecessor treaty?
That would be the 1895 Treaty of Shimonoseki.
From the First Sino-Japanese War. The one that legally ceded Taiwan to Japan.
That's the one. And here's where the boomerang comes flying back and hits them.
If you reject the SFPT, you inadvertently validate the Treaty of Shimonoseki.
The incredible, ironic conclusion is that, according to their own logic, if they reject the SFPT, Taiwan would legally still be a colonial territory belonging to Japan.
Which definitively proves it does not belong to the mainland power that's making the claim in the first place.
Exactly. They deny the treaty to assert ownership, but their denial only reinforces that the island belongs to someone else entirely. It's a dead end.
That is a stunning legal trap. It forces any serious legal debate right back to the facts established by the SFPT.
You have to.
Japan abandoned the land, and no recipient was designated. You can't just use political history to bypass the formal international legal text.
And that is why our sources call it their biggest failure. The legal ground is firm, and any attempt to undermine it just results in this devastating proof that the island doesn't belong to the claimant.
So, okay, we've established the facts. Abandonment, the omission leading to this undetermined status, and the logical trap waiting for those who deny the treaty's validity.
Yeah.
What's the contemporary relevance of all this for you, the learner? What does this mean for global politics today in the 2020s?
Well, the SFPT and that resulting undetermined status, it serves as what our sources call a solid core pillar supporting Taiwan's current political and diplomatic position.
A pillar.
It's the international legal foundation that reinforces Taiwan's position as a strategically critical asset standing on the front line of the global democratic camp.
We so often talk about Taiwan's strategic value in terms of, its semiconductor industry or its really robust democratic system. But this legal backing, it sounds like it's the bedrock for both of those things.
It is.
It grants the island the legal space to develop its democracy and its economy without having to constantly justify its own existence.
Absolutely. Because its status is undetermined, the current government in Taipei has the de facto legal space to act as a sovereign entity. This legal ambiguity is, in itself, a strategic asset.
How so?
It allows key allies, like the United States and Japan, to maintain policies that, while often diplomatically complex, acknowledge Taiwan's reality without formally challenging the mainland's One China principle. They can base their security and trade relationships on the simple fact that Taiwan is not legally owned by anyone else.
So the SFPT provides the legal justification for why a country like the U.S. can pass laws like the Taiwan Relations Act, ensuring defense capabilities, and why key trading partners feel secure engaging with Taipei. It's sort of the invisible legal structure that supports the visible democracy.
That's a great way to put it. And this is the practical takeaway for now. When you're confronted with these loud, insistent political claims that Taiwan is automatically owned by the mainland, the structured, rational response isn't to get into a shouting match or historical debates over old maps.
The legally sound response is to point them directly to the source material.
Just ask them to consult the 1951 San Francisco Peace Treaty. Because that treaty's superior legal weight, signed by dozens of nations, it completely outweighs the weight of any political slogan or historical assertion of conquest.
The facts established in 1951 point squarely to an undetermined status,
which provides the broadest possible room for Taiwan's democratic self-determination today.
This has been a fascinating journey into history and law. So we've really established the three core legal elements of the SFPT. Japan's definitive abandonment, the critical legal omission that leads to the undetermined status, and that fatal logic bomb that awaits anyone who tries to deny the treaty's existence.
That's the framework.
And that international legal backing really does complement Taiwan's strong democratic system and its powerful economy.
And, that leads to a final provocative thought for you to mull over. If the SFPT established this explicit legal foundation for an undetermined status, providing this critical legal clarity, how does this foundation empower key democratic allies, like Japan, for instance, whose own security is so tied to Taiwan's stability, to move beyond these vague political positions, to maybe formalize deeper diplomatic and defensive commitments based on acknowledged legal facts?
So, could the SFPT become the basis for establishing a more robust, formalized regional security framework?
That is something worth watching very closely.